Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of our themes for the forum is blue foods. Now, what is blue foods, you might ask? Well, it's not blue cheese or blueberries, but really food that, of course, comes from our blue seas. And we have the perfect speaker to tell us more. For her lifelong work on blue foods, Dr. Shakuntala Thilsted was awarded the 2021 Global World Food Prize for her groundbreaking research, critical insights, and landmark innovations in developing holistic approaches to aquatic food systems. Now, she is the global lead for nutrition and public health at WorldFish and a member of the steering committee of the high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition at the United Nations Committee on World Food Security. Let us all welcome Dr. Shakuntala Thilsted. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I am honored to be making this keynote address, harnessing the potential of aquatic food systems for regional development in Asia and the Pacific. And I thank the Asian Development Bank for giving me this opportunity. For many who are familiar with this region, Asia and the Pacific, I am sure you will agree that the title of my keynote address is extremely relevant. Just be reminded of the diverse landscapes within the nations in this region, the large ocean states in the Pacific, the long coastlines, the many and diverse inland water bodies, and vast deltas and wetlands, some seasonal in many countries. Let me begin with a brief overview of the present global narrative on aquatic foods in the context of food systems transformation, and put this in perspective of this region in nourishing its people and spurring dynamic innovations and development. Aquatic foods system is a relatively new term adopted by many institutions, including WorldFish 1 CGIAR, with a focus on all aquatic foods, which are diverse animals, plants, and microorganisms from all waters, marine and inland, and which form part of the diets of people and build on a holistic food, land, and water systems framework. Using this framing and a people-centered approach, it is easy to understand the multiple vital roles aquatic food systems have in this region for food and nutrition security, health and well-being, livelihoods and income of many diverse population groups. In just the last few years, there have been a number of global initiatives in which aquatic food systems have been integrated. These include the UN Food Systems Summit 2021, termed the People's Summit, and COP26. The scientific group of the UN Food Systems Summit provided 7 priorities for transforming food systems to end hunger and protect our planet. One of these is sustain aquatic foods. At COP26 last year, following on the UN Food Systems Summit, calls for transformation of food system for nourishing people and our planet were made. The ocean and aquatic environments were recognized and acknowledged for their importance in enabling climate mitigation measures. Aquatic foods, and in particular seaweed, were featured prominently in discussions on nature-based solutions for addressing the challenges in climate crises. And at the same time, being a highly nutritious food, aquatic foods are superfoods, bountiful in multiple nutrients, including minerals, vitamins, and essential fatty acids. These developments were further supported with the emergence of strong scientific evidence that was provided recently by UN Nutrition and Blue Foods Assessment. So the first point I wish to make, as a region, Asia and the Pacific must engage at all levels and continue to build on and strengthen this present global thrust of aquatic food systems for nourishing people and our planet. Highlight the strengths and possibilities of the very many diverse approaches. Invest in people, policies, and science, in new research and scaling innovations, and importantly, work together with other regions in our world to adopt and adapt the successes of this region. It has become apparent that for transforming food systems for the better, a people-centered approach must be employed. In the past, we focus on production systems, increasing the quantity of a few plant-based crops. In this region, rice, for example. A people-centered approach to food systems embraces all peoples, consumers, supply chain actors, producers, and those who support all aspects of the food system. For example, transport and service providers in food markets and food stores. In Asia and the Pacific region, with approximately 60% of the world's population, there is an enormous diversity of peoples and their engagements in food systems. Importantly, in Asia and the Pacific, with many countries still belonging to low and middle income economies, transforming food systems must respond to the needs of the poor and vulnerable, leaving no one behind. Without priority given to this large and diverse population group, it will not be possible to attain regional development. In the 2021 State of Food Security and Nutrition Report, it is noted that Asia and the Pacific region accounts for 420 million hungry and malnourished people. This is an increase of about 16% from the previous year, exacerbated by various disruptions, including the COVID-19 pandemic, but also political instability and natural disasters. As seen globally, the number of unemployed people in the region increased following these disruptions, and with a higher proportion amongst women and youth than for men. In Asia and the Pacific region, many of the people engaged in aquatic food systems are small-scale or artisanal fisherfolk and belong to the group of the poor and vulnerable. These dire trends, especially with COVID-19, are affecting them disproportionately, and with increasing numbers, these regions can be set on a disastrous course of not being able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG 2, Zero Hunger by 2030. Even though we have seen that much progress and successes were reached, especially in the last 2 decades. Therefore, my second point to you is to ensure the transformation of aquatic food system takes on a nutrition-sensitive, people-centered approach with specific focus on the poor and vulnerable, leaving no one behind. This means ensuring that our solutions, innovations, and approaches are just and equitable, building on the fundamental right to food, sufficient and nutritious food for all, a prerequisite for regional development. My third and last point touches on the importance of developing policies, partnerships, and investments that capitalize on the potential of nutritious, sustainable, and restorative aquatic food systems. Asia and the Pacific region is a showcase globally for the growth and success of the production of some aquatic foods, including tilapia in China and shrimp in Thailand and Vietnam. Existing narratives of growth in aquatic food systems center on international trade, contribution to national gross development based on monetary value, with an aim to increase that monetary value from year to year. This needs to change. With the global agenda on transformation of food, land, and water systems, and with our focus on aquatic food systems, it is abundantly clear that a holistic and sustainable approach encompassing the rich diversity of peoples and actors, aquatic foods, supply chains, and production systems are necessary for regional development. This cannot be achieved by one sector alone, such as capture fisheries and aquaculture, or even the wider agriculture sector, which includes capture fisheries and aquaculture, as well as terrestrial crops and livestock. The policies from these single sectors are too narrow, are not holistic, and are not people-centered to truly harness the transformative power of aquatic food systems. We must engage a range of partners and have integrated policies within food production and supply chains, linking these with consumption trends and demands, food and environment ministries, departments, nutrition and health, education, and capacity building. Greater engagement of the communities at all levels and incorporating traditional knowledge are necessary in developing meaningful policies that work for all. Partnerships with the private sector are crucial, as seen in the responses to COVID-19, whereby the private sector can assist governments to reach the poor and vulnerable with nutritious food products. For example, through school feeding and mother and child care programs. The Asian Development Bank, which is now in its 56th year of operation, can serve as a catalyst to accelerate the growth and development of aquatic food systems within food, land, and water systems transformation, as well as for equitable economic growth and development in the region. As ADB continues to drive its investment across 7 operational areas, it is now timely to revisit its focus and make meaningful changes to be a regional champion for food systems transformation. With less than 9 production seasons before we reach 2030, ADB, together with strategic partners such as WorldFish, 1CGIR, can lead a regional aquatic food systems revolution that will nourish all peoples and nations, leaving no one behind in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Thilsted, I will start with you. You mentioned in your speech earlier that the ADB, together with strategic partners, can lead to a regional food systems revolution. You said it's going to take investments in people, policies, and science, and that really it needs to be a people-centered approach. So tell us a little bit about your vision for this. What are some of the initial steps, for instance, that the ADB can take to make this happen?
Thank you, Sharon. And there is so much that's already happening. So I will say that, especially in this part of the world, in Asia and the Pacific, the revolution has started in terms of aquatic food systems. But I have 4 initial steps I will call for. 1, with the disruption caused by COVID-19, develop and promote the use of aquatic food systems to nourish especially the poor and vulnerable now. And that we can do because we have the largest supplies of aquatic foods in this part of the world. Secondly, I would start with production systems because people feel very comfortable with production systems. So develop and scale diverse production systems that supply both nutrients with a focus on women and children in the first 1,000 days of life, so that we get this intergenerational benefits for national development. And at the same time, production systems which promote and protect diversity and enable climate mitigation. And here I would call especially on production systems that include seaweed. My third point is that we know from global estimates that about 1/3 of the food we produce goes to loss and waste. So we can mainstream innovations such as solar drying, solar refrigeration, improvements of markets, especially for women to engage in order to reduce the loss of aquatic foods. And this also takes into consideration the amount of aquatic foods, for example, small fish species, which are used as animal feed and can be used for direct human consumption, nourishing the poor and vulnerable. And importantly, collaborate with partners in other regions. For example, Africa and the Caribbean, the development banks, to adopt and adapt nutrition sensitive and climate resilient aquatic food systems, which we have shown we can do in Asia and the Pacific.
A great future indeed. Now, Dr. Thilsted, I know you're listening very patiently. We just have about less than a minute or so, but just some quick thoughts from you on what you make of this discussion. Are you hopeful?
Yes, I am hopeful. And when you see the energy that comes from the partners, that comes from the representatives of the communities, then I think it's extremely hopeful. What I do think we need to build on is the youth. They're the ones who have to carry the agenda forward. They have to get together, and with all the technologies and that they have at hand, they can do that. And secondly, going forward with the youth, I do think we have to learn from the past. And I think it is extremely important that we bring in and learn from and incorporate traditional knowledge in the innovations and solutions we put forward.